So I work in a large building doing server maintenance. We, Team A, do repairs and parts we pick up in kits put together by another team, Team B. I got done with one of my runs on floor 4 and went into the elevator room to go down to floor 2. Outside the elevator room, I passed 2 employees from Team B that I recognized because I see them often. They were just standing by one of their carts talking. I went in, called the elevator. It was already on 4, so it just opened right up. Then I went down to floor 2. This is the only elevator on this side of the building. I get to floor 2, leave the elevator, and as I approach the door to leave the elevator room, the same 2 employees from floor 4 open the door and pull their big cart through the door and head to the elevator. There's no way that they could have made it several rooms away to the stairs, brought their cart down that many stairs, and made it back to the elevator room before me, all without breaking any sweat. I told another coworker who said that the same thing happened to her a few days ago, and there's been other strange things happening here to me and other people too. This place is whack. The elevator one happened last week, but yesterday, we had a fire alarm or drill and had to evacuate to the front lawn for a bit. I got out there and saw other people from my office, so I went and sat by them and opened up the group chat to see what was up. One of the girls I work with messaged it a minute or so later and asked what was going on. I thought that was weird because she was sitting like 2 people away from me, and I looked over, and she's not there anymore. I looked back at the chat and she said that she was working in the building next door and just saw all the lights and everybody outside, so she was checking up on us. I thought maybe it was just some other girl with the same hair and glasses that wandered off somewhere else while I wasn't looking, so I ignored it. I hadn't seen the coworker at all so far that day because I got in early and was working on a different floor all morning. But when we got the all clear and got back to the office, I saw her, and she was wearing the same clothes that I saw her wearing out on the lawn earlier. So there's no way that I could have known how she was dressed. I told her, and that's when she told me that the elevator thing happened to her a few days ago. Another girl I worked with messaged the chat a couple weeks ago if anyone else was in the floor or area that she was working in, and nobody was. She said that she heard someone behind her run past really fast with really loud steps, and she didn't know of anybody else nearby and didn't find anybody. And then a couple hours later, she said that the lights on the floor flickered and her music changed to a song that wasn't on her playlist. And it happened to be Tiptoe Through the Tulips, so she was thoroughly freaked out for the day. Fun fact, I was on a bathroom break when I wrote my comment, and directly after I posted it, the motion detector sink several feet away from me turned on for about 15 to 20 seconds before turning back off. Then about 2 seconds later, the motion detecting paper towel dispenser went off and spit out a paper towel. So yeah, something's up. And now I don't like working the weekend with only a couple other people. So just some backstory. My grandmother has Alzheimer's and dementia, but she still knows who I am and trusts me the most out of all the family. She was put into a care home in Brighton when she got too ill to live alone. I don't talk to my biological mother, but I'm really close to my gran and moved to Brighton, UK for university, so I could be near her to visit and care for her. Christmas of 2018, I, a female and 19, was in Leicester spending the holiday with my boyfriend's family. He was 20 at that time, as I don't really talk to my family. After a few days of having fun, I suddenly got this terrible feeling in my gut. I felt like I was going to throw up from the amount and the sudden bad feelings. I felt terrified and like I was in danger and panicked. Then, my nan came to mind, and I thought something was wrong with my nan. I was unable to call her as she doesn't like to use phones, but this feeling was so strong that I couldn't shake it. My boyfriend and I drove back to Brighton that night, and we arrived after midnight. And the following morning, I went to visit my nan at the care home to see if she was okay. When I arrived, I got told by the staff that my nan managed to escape from the home. This itself is impossible to do, as every door is locked or code locked, and my nan was being checked on every 5 minutes due to her health. After escaping, she obviously forgot where she was, walked across the road, knocked on a house, and told the homeowners that she was lost and scared and crying a lot. The police came and took her back, and she forgot it happened. She escaped and got scared the same time that I got all of the bad gut feelings. Ever since, I've always had a bad feeling when something has happened with my nan. Every time I listen to it and check on her. Luckily, nothing serious has happened, and she's still escaping care homes and giving staff the runaround. And luckily, the staff at the care home found it amazing and funny how my nan managed to escape a fully secure building in less than 5 minutes.
I'm visiting my parents with my 17-year-old son and don't have a coffee maker with me. So when I get off work on Monday, I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and got a medium cold brew coffee, no ice. I sipped about 1/5 of the cup, and when I got to my parents' house, I put some ice in the coffee to top it off. Then we watched Netflix for a while, and around 12 a.m., I put the coffee in the refrigerator and pulled my water bottle out. The coffee was still almost full, and I wanted to save it for the morning. I woke up the next day and ran some errands. When I got home, the plan was to drink the coffee and write in my journal. When I went to the fridge, the coffee wasn't where I placed it. So I looked in the fridge door shelves, looked behind everything thinking it had been moved. Nothing. I then asked my dad, and he had no idea. He hadn't even been to the fridge yet. I asked my son, but he hadn't even left his room. He was still on the Xbox. Lastly, I was sure maybe my mom had pitched it in the trash thinking it was no good. She hadn't even seen it. So I looked in the garbage, and nothing. I dug through it thinking maybe she had a lapse in memory and threw it out and didn't remember. But no trace. Then I checked the outside bin. We got to the point of searching the whole house, every room, as well as the bathroom. Even my parents were helping me look everywhere for this rogue coffee. We were all perplexed. It was legit gone, and we couldn't explain it. I told my mom it must be a glitch in the Matrix, and then I explained that reference to her. I've never had anything like this happen before. And before you go start asking questions, my mom only drinks tea, no coffee. I have begged my son to try coffee, and he hates it. And my dad only has 1 cup a day, and it has to be hot. This was a cold brew, and he thinks iced coffee is gross. So no, I don't think anyone drank the coffee. It was midnight when I put it in the fridge, and everyone was getting ready for bed. This is a serious mystery.
Hi, I originally wasn't going to post this, but I haven't been able to get this event out of my head since a week ago when it happened. I, a 19-year-old female, have never done drugs or alcohol, and I'm not on any medication, so there's no way it was anything in that vein. Anyway, here's what went down. On Wednesday, July 7th, my mom sent me out to the store to get groceries. I left the house at exactly 12:34. I usually wouldn't take notice of the time, but I remember thinking, "Ooh, cool, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, because I looked at the time as I left, I looked at the time as soon as I parked in my garage. It was 1:40, and I put the groceries away and went to lie down. At this time, it was 1:50-ish, and I'm going to be rounding up a little because I stopped looking at the clock. As soon as my head hits the pillow, I'm finishing up a 15-minute video that I had been watching before I left home. There were about 7 minutes left, so it was around 2 at this time. Once the video is done, I get up to pee. While I'm on the toilet, I take out my phone and unlock the screen. Yeah, I use my phone on the toilet, okay? And I am flabbergasted. The clock reads 7 p.m. 7 on the dot. Once I finished up, I ran outside and sure enough, the sun was setting. All the clocks around the house read 7 p.m. and I wasn't sleepy. I hadn't slept. And I had finished the video and gone directly into the bathroom. I am so confused and it's driving me crazy, not knowing what happened. I tried asking my sister about it, and she just laughed, believed that I was lying or exaggerating. And I'm embarrassed to ask anyone else. This happened to me about 6 years ago while I was still in high school. I woke up one morning and my mom asked if I had been playing a video or listening to music in my room. I told her no, and she told me how she could hear what sounded like 2 men arguing when she was in the living room. She checked every room in the house except mine since she didn't want to wake me and couldn't find the source or hear the arguing. She took our dog out front and didn't find anybody and couldn't hear anything. Nothing in the backyard either. At that time, I brushed it off and I was super skeptical about the paranormal stories and believed that there was an explanation for everything. I told her she probably heard our neighbors arguing and that they stopped when she went outside. Flash forward about 2 weeks later, I'm doing homework on my couch and start hearing 2 men arguing. It sounded muffled and almost like whoever was speaking was trying to be quiet. I couldn't make out what exactly was being said, but each guy sounded pissed. I went in my dad's office thinking that he left the TV on or his computer, but everything was off. I immediately got chills when I realized that I couldn't hear the voices from my dad's office. I went back in the living room, and the voices came back. I grabbed my baseball bat and checked the entire house. Nothing. Checked the front and the backyard. Nothing. Went back to the living room, and the voices came back. I thought it was weird that none of my dogs seemed to notice the voices. They would go crazy if they heard someone talking on the phone while walking past our house. Yet, they're all chilling. I was so freaked out that I sat on the back porch until my mom came home. And by then, the voices were gone. I never could explain it, and it's probably the creepiest event in my life.
My mum was at her mother's and a voice message came through the home phone. The message started out with a little background noise and some laughter, but then someone on the other side spoke in another language. At first this sounds like a scam or nothing too concerning, but when my mom heard it, she assumed it was me pranking my grandmother. To give some context as to why I would be the presumed culprit, the day before she went, I spoke gibberish to my dog to see what he would do. I kept it up the whole morning, so my mom heard enough of it to know what it sounded like. To give some insight of what it sounded like and the types of syllables it had, it was a mesh of Hindi and Spanish, so they shrugged it off and went on with their day. When my mom came home, she asked if I had left my grandmother a message, to which I denied and then asked her why. When she explained it to me, I was skeptical at first, especially since I was thinking it was just a prank call or foreign scam. However, she kept pressing me since I'm known to keep a joke going until it served its life. I kept denying it. I decided to call my grandmother to hear the voice message for myself. I called her, and the first thing she said was that she was caught off guard by my prank. Still denying the allegation, I decided to ask if she kept the voicemail. So she played it, and I was shocked. To give more insight, I have a very distinct Southern accent and know what I sound like over the phone. When I heard my voice speaking an unknown language over the phone, it spooked me out a little. Not because it sounded like me per se. There is always a possibility there are other people who have a Southern accent like mine and speak another language. It is a big world. The part that took me aback was the language being spoke sounded identical to the one I was speaking to my dog. A mixture of Hindi and Spanish. Except this one sounded much more fluent than what I spoke. After it ended, I had to deny a few more times until they believed me. And since it came through her home phone, there was no caller ID to be found. Now I just wonder what it could be, especially since the language and the voice sounded like mine.
The first one happened during the day around 5 p.m. I was at home with my boyfriend, minding my sister's 2 dogs, just watching TV in the living room. The front door opened and slammed shut, and my sister went running up the stairs. I knew it was her because she has the same routine every day. Same massive bang while closing the door and footsteps running upstairs to see her dogs. The 2 dogs were growling really bad, so I got up and called her name. No one answered, so I rang my parents to see were they home. They had just picked up my sister from work, and my brother was there with them, so it was just us at home. I shat myself, to be honest, while searching because whoever it was didn't come back downstairs, and no one was up there. When they got home about 30 minutes later, my sister slams through the door and runs up the stairs, and it really freaked me out, but I didn't know about glitches until I found this sub. My family believed me because they all had weird stuff happen in this house too. Second story is from a few years ago when I moved back home again in the same house. I was sleeping in the living room on an air mattress at that time, and I was going to bed. When I opened the door, my legs hit something shin height that I couldn't move past. I automatically thought it was the table that I sometimes move to block the door. So I turned on the light, and the table was on the other side of the room. And there was nothing blocking my way at all. So, my fiancé was driving the car, and I was the passenger. I always have a pair of sunglasses in the car and another pair in my purse. The sun was shining, so I took my sunglasses from the car. Except, it wasn't the one from the car. It was the sunglasses from my purse. I took an extra look at them because I was very confused. I might have switched them at some point without realizing it, so I put them on and I start looking for the other sunglasses. And they are not in the car. We reached our destination and I took my sunglasses off. But now, it's the right one. The sunglasses that I have in the car. So, at some point, a glitch happened where my sunglasses was switched. Then while wearing it, it glitched back to the right one. I know it's a small glitch, but the experience was kind of scary.
I personally can't go to sleep without noise, so I've gotten into the habit of listening to podcasts through my Airpods when I go to bed. I tend to move around a lot in my sleep, so they usually fall out of my ears at night. One night, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was woken up by the sound of my AirPod rolling around the small crack between my bed frame and the wall. I didn't want to get up to pick it up, so I just thought, oh well, I'll get it when I wake up for school in a few hours. When I woke up to look for it, it wasn't on the floor where I thought it had fallen, so I just guessed it was in between the mattress and frame, or rolled up in the covers or something. When I got home from school, I tried to look for it. It was nowhere to be found. I flipped over every part of my bed to look for it and even called my mom in for help. They were gone. I gave up looking for it and kind of just assumed I had lost it somewhere else. A couple of days ago, I'd gotten up in the middle of the night for a midnight snack, which was a bag of Takis, which had also fallen in between the crack of my bed frame and wall. When I got up to look for them, the same thing happened. When I flipped over everything, I couldn't find them. And lastly, today, as I was going to take a shower, I left my necklace on the edge of my bed. It fell through the crack, and this time I visually saw it, so I went to go take my shower and would come back to look for it once I was done. And I did the same thing. I flipped some stuff over, and I couldn't find it. I called my dad in to help me shake around my bed frame a couple of times, and I still couldn't find it. This marks a total of 3 things that have been lost in the exact same place.
So my adult daughter and I had a falling out. She had been staying here and left on kind of bad terms. I had to call the police, but we are all good now. I was home alone and I had been sitting on the couch, got up and dropped my phone. I heard it fall on the floor and I knew where it was, or worst case, under the couch a bit. But it landed right in front of the couch. I didn't look for it because I was focused on something else, and I had found a favorite book of poetry from my childhood. Not a kid's book, but one that a friend and a teacher had given me that he had written. He was part of my gifted class stuff. I had decided to go out in my hammock in the yard and read it. I found a poem that just fit my feelings. So I decided to kind of be shitty and write out this poem on Facebook. I know, petty, but I was in my feelings. So I went in to get my phone and it was not on the floor. I looked all over for it, under the couch, in my robe, all of it. And eventually I was like, okay, I get it. I'll go back to my book and I'll read and I will not be petty. But I want my phone back. Yes, I said all of this out loud. So I go back out, relax, finish my book, and go about my day. Phone is still nagging at me. I looked around again, demanded my phone back. Well, that went nowhere. So I decided to make a deal. I said, okay, you can keep my phone for the night, but I need it by 11 a.m. when I'm ready to leave for work. and I went on about the day and went to bed. Now mind you, I looked everywhere, in my car 3 times, floors, under seats, in my phone holder, and I took my computer around the house, called myself on Facebook, in the house, out of the car, and in the car. Nowhere. It does not exist. Next morning, I'm casually looking for my phone and look in the car one more time. Fuck it. I said until 11 a.m. I went back in and did morning stuff, needed to go to the quick E-Mart across the street, so I drive over. Now, you can't look out the front of the car without seeing the phone holder. It's in the middle of the dashboard standing up, and I looked at it and said, "Gosh, it would be nice if my phone just appeared there." I went in the store, got my stuff, and came out, and as I am backing up, I look at the phone holder again and said that I wish it would appear there. I go home, get ready for work, and it's 10:30, and I said, "Look, you have half an hour and I am not playing." Half hour goes by, and I take a quick walk through the house and it's 11:15, and I have to leave for work with no phone. You have to have your phone at my job, and I would just have to use the house phone if there was an emergency. I went outside, got in my car, shut the door and put the key in. And I looked straight at my dead phone and the phone holder. The car was locked. It was not on the ground and someone put it there, and I will tell you why I know this. I have a very particular way that I set my phone in the holder so that I can reach the button in the back without the holder in the way. I have to perch it up higher, and my phone was in exactly the right position in a locked car. I looked at it and I was just stunned into silence. I said thank you quietly, went in, got my charger, and didn't say or think a word until I got into work and tried to tell my coworker. She got creeped out and didn't want to talk about it. So yeah, that's my story. And yes, before anyone asks, my carbon monoxide detector works just fine, and I just happen to live in a haunted house or a vortex, but both are possible. I used to live in Florida in New Tampa. It was the suburb section right outside of University area. I lived with a friend of mine, and one day, I borrowed her truck to go to 7-Eleven right by her house to get a sugar-free Red Bull. So I pull up to the 7-Eleven that's about 2 minutes away from her house, the one that I always go to. I go inside, grabbed my Red Bull, and got in line. It felt like it took forever, which I never mind. I always fill the wait time with a little reading, usually, but this time, I felt like I was standing in that line so long that my feet actually started to hurt. It was weird. The second I was about to put my drink down and leave, it was my turn to pay, and finally, I was out the door. Here's where the weird part comes in. There is another 7-Eleven about 8 minutes away from my friend's house, and that is the 7-Eleven that I walked out of. I opened the door walking out as I was looking at my phone. I looked up, and I was at the 7-Eleven that was 8 minutes away from my friend's house. But I just went into the one that was 2 minutes away from her house. I wasn't drunk, I don't even drink, no drugs, and I wasn't overly tired or sick. It was real. I somehow walked into one 7-Eleven and walked out of a different one. So, I called my friend and told her something weird just happened, and she started yelling at me. "Where have you been?" I've been worried sick. And I'm like, what? I felt like I was only gone for a few minutes and not even long enough to go all the way to that other 7-Eleven. I knew the line was kind of long and it took a minute to get through, but I felt like it didn't take longer than that. I hadn't gotten around to telling her that I felt like I went to one 7-Eleven and came out another one, and she tells me that I have been gone for a couple of hours. So I told her that I would talk to her when I got back to her house. I got in her truck, I backed out of the parking spot, put the truck in drive to pull away, and when I looked up, what? I was pulling away from the 7-Eleven that was 2 minutes away from her house. So from there, I didn't look down or away from the road at all. I sped back to her house, and when I got back to her house, I called her from the driveway and told her that I was there, and she said, "No, you're not. I'm outside waiting for you." I was in the same parking spot that I always use. Nothing changed. It was the same thing, and I did almost every day. At this point, I started to panic a little bit, so I pulled the truck out, put it in drive, drove around the apartment complex, and back to her house. I went a different way, which ended in my friend's driveway, and she was out there with my kids and her kids. I asked how long they've been outside there, and she said for about an hour. I went inside and looked through my Google Maps activity, and it showed that I had driven 31 miles away and then back. But I never stopped for the Red Bull according to my Google Maps. I was sitting there and drinking it. My mileage and gas tank said otherwise. A couple of weeks later, I got a vehicle and decided to move in with my now husband, and I've never had that problem again. My friend won't even let me talk about it. It horrified her, and I think I'm just chalking it up to an unexplained scientific thing.
I have an art studio room in a spare bedroom in my house where I spend most of my time. The lighting is very important. 3 months ago, the Hive bulb I was using blew, so I rummaged around to find a new bulb under the sink in the house. I switched it out and put the Hive bulb on the bookshelf. The new one had been in for about a week. It was dull, and the light was all wrong. So I bought 2 new bulbs from ASDA last night and changed it, putting the old bulb next to the Hive bulb, and worked in the 100-watt light for about an hour before going to bed at midnight. At 1 a.m., I realized I left something in the studio and went back in, but the light didn't go on. I figured the new bulb had blown, and I thought to switch it in the morning. This morning I come in. I tried the light switch, but it obviously still didn't work. I reached up and took out the blown bulb, only to find it was the Hive bulb that was installed, and not the new ASDA bulb. I sound like the most boring person in the world talking about light bulbs, but I don't know how this could happen. The Hive bulb was broken. It wasn't even the last bulb that was installed. I was working with the 100-watt bulb installed for over an hour. I remember clearly thinking it was so bright. Literally, 20 minutes ago, I took out with my bare hands the Hive bulb. There is no mistake here. The Hive bulbs look and feel different. Plus, I just tested both the ASDA bulbs, and they both work perfectly, meaning the light should have worked when I switched it on at 1 a.m. There is one other person who lives in my house, and she was in bed with me at midnight. She didn't leave the bedroom. I just want to know, has anyone ever experienced this before?
Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.